Hello, everybody. It's Tuesday, 12:15, so you know what time it is, right? It's Ray2Go show time. And today we're going to be talking about failure. I think there's nobody alive that hasn't experienced failure. But our attitudes to failure have changed over the years, and certainly, I mean, the years that I've been alive, it's failure was something that you want to avoid at all cost, or if you did fail, you want to keep it very, very secret. Now we seem to be entering an era where failure is celebrated, even encouraged, and we want to explore that at some depth. Why is that? Is it just a specific demographic who believe that? Is there still a moral or a personal kind of sense of being a loser if you fail at something? So we're going to start by introducing the panel, and we're just going to pin each one, and they're going to say hi, and I'm going to start with BL.
Hi, I'm here in sunny New York, soon to be in a week of rain, sorely needed, and I certainly have experienced failure personally, and in companies that I've worked with, I've seen them fail, and I think that the reason that failure is embraced in startups is there is the belief that if you've never failed, you just really haven't experimented in a way that would really bring about new ideas. And that, launching new ideas is something that is very difficult. And you may fail the first time you do it. And sometimes things have to come back because somebody was too far ahead of the curve. So failure is not necessarily a bad thing, as you pointed out in the green room, if you can afford it.
Thank you very much, BL. Jessica, what's your thoughts? Well, first of all, introduce yourself and then
Hi,
give us your thoughts.
I'm Jess, and it's going to come down for me, it's going to come down to problem solving, and do we have the skills to problem solve? Because all failure is not getting a result of something that we wanted. So can we stand up, and are we going to try the same thing again, and maybe have a cycle of the sameness? Or are we going to stand up and are we going to try something different and see what that works? So I think it comes down to our skill sets and how do we approach when something doesn't work. Are we able to adjust and learn from that to move forward?
Thank you. Brandy, introduce yourself, please, and tell us what your thoughts, and unmute.
I'm Randy. I'm here on a rainy day in Georgia. I think that failures create our biggest successes, that they come later. But there's a strong need to be able to acknowledge your failure first, and that's where you'll take that and catapult into a success later.
Cool. Scotty.
Hi, Scott, the Scott and the Scott treatment from sunny Seattle, and something, words to live by. A while back, and by that I mean years and years and years, I came up with the idea, and I think we're all saying exactly the same thing, all of us in the film strip. I came up with the idea that it's not the setback, it's how you respond to the setback that really counts. So if there are words to live by, that would be my contribution.
Thank you. And remember, we did a show about resilience, and that was how we deal with failure, how we deal with when things don't go right. So, but I got this idea for the topic because obviously failure is something we think about very often, because every time you do something, you think, well, is there a possibility I'm not going to succeed at it? But I was reading Andrew Keene's book, The Internet is Not the Answer. And it's a provocative book, and well, he's a provocative kind of guy. But one of the chapters was on failure, and he bemoaned the fact that there's a whole culture, especially in the West Coast, around Silicon Valley, that's now actually kind of making a cult of failure. And I think I got a quote here, actually. He says, in Silicon Valley, the failure is success lie has become such an accepted truth that there is now a San Francisco event called FailCon. But when we start creating conferences and meetups about failure, what does that say? At what point did we, and this is going to be the first question I'm going to throw out to you guys, at what point did our attitudes towards failure change? So I'll let anybody answer that.
I'll jump in. I think it's a swing back. Okay, I think we have a generational correction occurring, if I may be so honest. When I was growing up, I was of the generation, everybody won, everybody got a ribbon, there was no last place, things like that. And we're starting to see the results in my generation and the people slightly older than me and the people slightly younger than me of what that means and how we approach the world and what our success rate can be in that realm. And so when we have to swing back and embracing failure, it's like, oh, it's, you know what, not everybody can be first. Wow, okay. So I think it's a swing back.
As one that's just slightly older than Jess, I would totally agree with her premise of where she's going with that. Something comes to mind, and it was before her generation, but my daughter, we used to do these bowling parties at the bowling alley, right? And they had these bumpers that they would put in where the kids would never, go in the gutter. They'd never get a gutter ball. They'd always hit the pin in some kind of way, teaching them that, hey, this is a pretty easy game, right? When it's like, kind of like taking the training wheels off. You have to do that. I was fortunate enough to come along when not everybody got a ribbon. And you realized that if you drop the ball in the game and everybody booed you or were disappointed or they said, hey, better luck next time, the next time you're going to put a little sticky on your fingers to grab it better and work harder for that. And I think like Jess said that they're seeing some of the fruits of their no labor possibly of today. So yeah, if you're not failing, you're not doing anything. Because all of us fail, right? We're all imperfect.
Every day.
And so it's if you come up with an idea, and you think and say you're an entrepreneur and you come up with an idea and you got the greatest idea in the world, take it to the sharks and let them tell you if it's going to work or not. If they, those are some experienced people and they'll tell you they failed, countless times.
But it does come down to, if you fail with your last nickel, you're in deep trouble. If you fail with backing, I think this goes back to the early 90s when there was like mania about the internet and the burn rate that companies had was, obscene, going through gazillions of dollars with stupid ideas. And, but some of them came out of it with brilliant ideas. And so, but I don't think this is generational so much as it was perhaps VC initiated, and they're still putting outrageous sums of money into companies that you can't understand why they are. But some of those companies will fail, and some of those companies will be spectacularly successful. So the idea of failure is not a danger, and I think it's been around a long time. I don't think it was one generation or another generation, or I think it's all about money.
Moods and attitudes change, though. Like, well,
Yeah, I was because BI said the early the 90s, with the whole bust and all that. And maybe that's it. Maybe this whole new idea, this new approach towards failure started with startups and entrepreneurs, and maybe those are the people that sort of are now embracing that because they understand that you have to do that to get to what you want to do, and you have to experience a lot of flops before you get that success, if you do, and that's not guaranteed, right? I mean, just because you fail doesn't mean that, the next one's going to succeed or the next one after that. I want to go back to what Randy said earlier because it brought me back to the schoolyard, when you're playing drop ball or basketball on the schoolyard, and if you're not good at sports, for instance, and you say, you drop the ball and people go, you suck, da-da-da-da. At what point, what kind of person is it that says, I'm going to try harder, I'm going to take lessons and learn how to do this right, or the person that cowers and says, I can never do anything right, I'll never try that again because I'll humiliate myself?
It comes down to your network and who you surround yourself with. And then as a child, it comes down to the parents. When you went home and talked about it, were you, wow, yeah, well, tough luck, but I'm here for you and I've got your back? Or did you not have something like that? So as you get older, do you have somebody you could talk about failures with? Do you have somebody that can have your back even though they might not be able to change the situation you're in? And I think that plays a big part in how we approach the world as adults and then in each day and in each relationship.
Some people are just not good at things, certain things that they have a passion, they want to do something, say it's sports, but they just don't have the ability to overcome the difficulties of learning it and tackling it. Some people are just savants about things like that, and they have that things. Others say, I can pick this up, and they work at it pretty hard, and they get real good, and they stick with it. Another story about myself: I sat down in a casino at a blackjack table one time with about $100, and very quickly the $100 was gone, and the dealer looked at me and he said, "Mister, I don't think blackjack's your game." I've never played it again. I mean, it was not. I mean, I just didn't get the. I mean, and that's an easy game, right? But I just didn't get the concept. I couldn't win anything. So, I mean, I realized that. Did it hurt my feelings? No, because I was able to keep a little bit more money in my pocket. So, but I was one of those guys that when they started picking teams on the playground field, I might not have been in the first 5 picks or something like that because I didn't have athletic ability, but I tried hard, right? And I would if I missed something, I'd take the humility and I'd keep trying. I didn't quit and walk away.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you about that specific thing. Is that are you a failure if you try at something? If you don't have a natural ability and you can't do what your friend does because he does have natural ability, as long as you try, are you still considered a failure, or are you a failure because you quit?
Well, considered by who? I mean, is it about how you feel about yourself and whether the way you feel about yourself enables you to go on to the next round, or those clown dolls that you hit them and they keep coming back up? Some people are like that. I'm one of those, and it depends. I mean, who said you're a failure, and do you think you're a failure? If you don't think you're a failure, you keep moving forward.
Yes,
it certainly helps to have support. No two ways about that. And if you grow up in a house where they tell you you can be anything you want to be, which is certainly what I was told, then you know what, you can. And if you grow up in a house where they say, you're never going to be anything, and you're not smart, and you're not this, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of kids who grow up that way. It's going to reflect your future. No two ways about it.
But I also, go ahead.
Well, the environment has something to do with it as well, and I point to you to the Great American Dream. And what is the Great American Dream except if you work hard and you get a good education and you keep your nose clean and shoulder to the grindstone, if you play the game by the rules, then you're going to succeed. And there is a whole generation, the middle class, and kids who are coming out of high school and college nowadays, and they're playing the rules by the American dream, and they're failing. And is it because, is it a flaw in what they're doing?
Well, if you want to get into politics, we can talk about that. But, the American dream is not working for us at this point.
I think, and that is politics. That's a political statement, Scott, because we changed the American dream. I mean, we as a society in this country changed the American dream. Used to, think about your parents, how they worked hard, did all the right things, and then all of a sudden, a couple of generations later, everybody had a house. Everybody's entitled to a house. Everybody. It's just we changed that. So that I think that's a little bit stretching the topic that we're talking about.
I do too.
But let's roll it back then, and let's take it from the American specific dream to just the dream of success. And if we do that, then we have to define what success is.
Jess said what Jess said and BL said is totally true.
Yeah.
It's attitude and if you have it within you, and you're raised in an environment that supports you, encourages you, fosters that. That's where a lot of that comes from.
But that's a big if, and going back to what I was saying about the definition of success. In some cultures, and I'm not going to get specific because I don't want to go down the political thing. In some cultures, success has a moral attachment to it. If you're successful, if you're rich, somehow you deserve that. If you're poor or if you're struggling, you deserve that. And I think that impacts a lot of people because people care about how other people look at them. So if you haven't reached what you think is success, whether that's a house or whether that's however you define it, that's going to impact on your ability to succeed or to bounce back from failure.
What we're talking about is skills. We're talking about a set of skills, and somebody has to teach us those skills. So if I was told I could be the President of the United States, And I was never taught how to rally a group of people. I was never taught how to be able to converse and not share all of my opinions at once or hold some of my cards close at hand. I would be at a disadvantage to becoming president of the United States. So we have to be exposed to a way to learn skills for the things that we want to do. So I believe I could be anything that I want to be, but I also believe I have to be willing to build those skills. And if I did not have those skills, it would be very aware of me to go out and learn the skills that I want so that I could run a company, create an invention, figure out how to clean houses better in my market and reach more people than the other house cleaners in the area. Whatever that might be, it comes down to the skills we have. Some of that's courage.
Well,
and
or
tenacity.
even so, there are some people who don't have access to the support network. There are some people who don't have access to being taught. And you know what? In a little village somewhere in the most remote place where they have internet connection, there's a kid sitting there now trying to educate him or herself so that they can gain those skills. There's some hard wiring involved here, and I don't know what you call that, but there are some people that they will always move forward.
What is the role of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, underlying all of this, I think, is the question: how much in charge of our own destiny are we? Are we really in charge of our own destiny?
What role does luck play in this?
Luck is a big role, no two ways about it. I mean, luck is got a lot to do with it, but luck is also defined as being aware of an opportunity and opening the door to it. I mean, many of us have been exposed to what could have turned out to be luck and go, no, I don't want to do that. Me, but I mean, that's one of the things is, do you take chances? Do you take risks? How many risks do you take? What kind of internal fiber do you have? And some people really do seem to have it innately.
So in other words, what you're saying, what I hear the panel saying is that if you do things right, then you're inevitably going to succeed.
Not at all. Nobody said that.
No.
Well then,
I think there are a lot of things that are exterior to yourself that can cause you to fail. That nothing you can do about.
And now I'd like to go back to the American dream, and if the system is rigged in one way, the chances of a lot of people succeeding, I think, is better than if it's rigged in a different way. Not all social conventions are created equal, and the proof is in the pudding. Because I think
what do you mean by
people,
rigged?
In other words, if you've got K, I hate to make this political, but if you've got K Street and if you've got
evidently not, Scott.
If things are arranged so that certain people can get ahead and then race ahead, and other people, no matter how hard they try, they just can't quite seem to make it. After 20 or 30 years of a certain theory saying, well, the trickle down, excuse me, but the theory is going to work. Try something different, and eventually we'll come up with something that'll work. But at the end of the day, it's a combination of initiative within the larger context.
But isn't that what we're talking about?
Context.
Isn't that the topic here? Is what is that? Why is failure now more acceptable than it used to be? Why is failure even celebrated? I think what we're discussing here is the reason is that sometimes people keep trying enough times, they will in fact come up with the next time the really right approach, the right formula, the right idea. So I mean, I think that's the topic of conversation.
The power of positive thinking is a new thing.
But I have to go back. What's your
Randy? Go ahead.
What you're saying, Scott, and the panel is it almost sounds like as a whole everybody should have an equal chance, which is that's noble, but that's not realistic, okay? Because of how this society and all the societies around the world work. But let's just step back a minute. Some people have an entrepreneurial spirit, as BL said. BL was told she would do this, and she's even admitted she's had failures. We all have failures. Some people don't want to be the lead dog. They want to be the workhorse. They want somebody to guide them. I mean, that's not bad. I mean, we need those people, right? They like to take orders. They like somebody to direct them. Now, they might be in a position of power, but they always want some kind of a guard around them. So they don't necessarily have, well, you know, I think I'm just going to go out and start a bakery shop. I've always loved to be a bakery. Even though they love to bake at home and they like to do that, they don't go, well, you know, I can turn this passion into a money venture.
Your underlying assumption is that everyone defines success in the same way. What I'm saying is that, you know, people can follow their bliss. All people are different, so you define success differently for, you know, whomever. It's just that not everyone is able to reach their level of success, or, you know, people who on their deathbed, you know, look back and they think, I'm a terrible failure. That probably means that they're a failure, that they didn't reach their potential, or they didn't become the person they were supposed to be.
I think that's a telling thing about the guilt that they held in their life their whole lifetime.
I want that brings me. Before we do the last question, what Jessica was saying earlier in terms of being raised in an era where you weren't allowed to fail, that you were allowed, you know, you were always given a pass. You know, what's the repercussions of that? Is that why perhaps we have a different approach to failure, because we have a bunch of kids who've gone through school who never had to repeat a grade, or were never told that they failed this course? What do you think?
I hate to say it, but if that's the case, in other words, nobody failed, then we do have a lot of moderately educated people walking around.
Well, we're noticing it. Look at how many 30-somethings are living at home with their own kids, but they're not living in their own homes. They're living with their parents.
I've heard so many friends who teach at college levels and who say the standards have dropped enormously over the last decade or so.
Oh, I think I've shared with y'all. I talk to college age kids all the time, and it amazes me at things that are, I mean, just stuff that you think you would learn by the time you got out of the 5th grade that they don't even understand.
So that has repercussions.
I don't think we should be so hard on kids. Kids are getting.
I'm not being hard on kids. I'm just saying.
Not being hard on kids.
Kids are getting out of college now, and their lives are mortgaged with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for their education. Where are they going to live? I mean, they're not going to buy a house. You know, there are not jobs for them at the level that they've been educated to. I don't think we should be so hard on kids. We have to get into a big political discussion
It's the American dream, right, Scott?
Yeah.
So
let's talk about it from problem solving really quick. I want to jump in. If we could do one thing well, and problem solving is actually a group of skills that when practiced over and over again, that series of problem solving steps, a whole bunch of skills come together and they become stronger in us. So we don't have to be innately good at something to learn to problem solve. We can increase the skills that are required for problem solving, even if we don't become the top dog in them or an expert or whatever some measure is. We can have enough of it to be able to take the steps forward that we need, recognize when something's not working, make some changes, and try something different. So if the people we're talking to aren't helping us out the way we need to recognize, we need to change the people we're talking to. But how do we come through that awareness unless we have a process that we could work from and do it so much that the process becomes second nature? And how cool is it that there's a whole other subset of skills that go into problem solving that would be increased because of that as well?
I have a question for you, Jessica.
Yeah.
So then, in terms of problem solving, you have to have a certain level of creativity to problem solve, right? So my question, well, can it be? And that's my question: is problem solving or creativity a personality trait or a skill?
I don't think problem solving, you'll have to excuse that in the background, I don't think problem solving necessarily requires creativity. I think it requires an awareness to understand that something's not working, and an idea of, well, if this isn't working, what are some other options I could try? They don't have to be creative options, they just have to be something else to try to gather more data to find out if it's working more, easier.
What about all the people who, people were saying what you want to do will never work, you're crazy, you're nuts, and they kept going. The Steve Jobs of the world, for example, the Stu Leonards of the world, you're crazy, that'll never work. They kept going, and they just kept going. So, was that problem-solving skills? Was that stubbornness? What was that?
I think problem solving is a part of it.
it goes back to what Scott says on equal footing. I mean, if my truck out here breaks down, I ain't got a clue how to problem solve that and fix it, but I know somebody that does. They have that skill set.
That's a problem you solved. I can't do it, but I know who does.
Right, but now if I asked them to create an ad campaign for a garage, they couldn't do that. I mean, it's skill sets and whatever your vocation or whatever your calling is.
So let's roll this back because we're almost finished. I want to roll back so that we can tell people, yes, this conversation was relevant to you. We're discussing failure because through discussions in past shows, we've discovered that a lot of companies don't understand the social thing, don't understand why they should be on it, and a lot of companies are just scared to do something they haven't done before because the company seems to be okay. They've done it this way for generations. Why should I do social marketing? And so it goes down to risk again, and risk is such an important part of this. And some people embrace risk. Entrepreneurs, rich people who don't care if they lose a lot. So what can a small business owner take from this conversation about failure that might help them make a decision to give it a try? Are they going to lose everything, or is there a way of doing things where you can succeed incrementally?
I'm tempted to just give you the psychological answer. Nothing in life is guaranteed. You just got to keep forging ahead, right? You just got to keep going. I mean, if you have that passion, at some point in time, and I think Bill said at some point in time, after 20 failures, somebody might go, screw this. I'm going to go work at Walmart. Or they're going to go try that 21st time. Or that 28th time.
I have a magnet on my refrigerator that says a winner is just a loser who tried one more time. So.
Well, that's okay. Well, that's a good point, Bill. When do you know when to quit? And we had this talk before. When is it okay? I mean, I've tried this like 7 times, and how do you know when to stop?
When the poker dealer,
well,
when the poker dealer told me to.
Yeah, when you run out of cash, time, or you've lost your house and wife and whatever. Yeah. I mean, that's when do you stop? I mean, I face this. I faced it several times over the last few years. You keep plugging away and doing things, and they don't seem to be working. And thinking, Hills, this is stupid. Why do you keep on going? And all I can say is that I really don't know what else to do. Because
I think one of the things that complexes the realm that we tend to work in a lot. Today is these platforms that we deal with and educate ourselves with and get real familiar with change constantly. I mean, there's just so much change today. So, I mean, the funny thing about change is what I noticed. The only thing I see that really stays the same or has that, couple of decades swing is fashion. What was popular in the 70s comes back. What popular in the 90s it comes back. That 90s was a disco. I hope that doesn't come back. But anyway, But everything today, the phone. I mean, think about it. Apple rolled out a new phone less than a year ago. Now they rolled out another version of it, and it's just record sales. It's just everything changes so fast. That it's hard for people. People's heads spin around so much, And I think because of so much data, so much technological equipment out there and things like that, a lot of it gets left behind. It's just too much for people.
Yeah, but I think change is the fun part.
Yeah, but you're an oddity, BL, and I mean that in the best of all possible ways.
Yeah.
Most people detest change, and I think that's the part that people are having difficulty.
Well, you have to embrace. You have to, especially, and that was a big mantra in the 80s and 90s in corporate America was embrace change. Because they were getting you prepared because they were fixing to come in and whack a bunch of staff out of there. So
getting you prepared for failure.
They had a 10-year plan of brainwashing you, embrace change. All of a sudden, wham. So that's what happens. But you do have to embrace change because if you, especially today, more so today than ever, nothing's guaranteed really. I mean,
right.
There's not.
So I don't know how relevant this is, but last night my 16-year-old son, who's very technically savvy, was saying that he feels that he might be growing up in a little bit of the wrong era, that he's a little bit tired of the sort of constant change that he's exposed to. And we talked about time travel, and and I believe this very strongly. If you want to time travel, all you do is you go inland to a small rural community in the middle of South Dakota, for example. So I was suggesting to him that that's where he might want to end up if he wants to lead a slower-paced life.
I thought you were going to suggest an app or something for time travel. I thought, okay,
I thought he was
Ray, I
fixing
want
to
to
step
answer
into
your
a
question
booth.
before we go. And
okay, yeah, because we have to go.
Yeah. What about problem? If somebody wants to try this and they're not sure, they don't have a problem-solving process, or they don't know where their risk tolerance is, why not decide, okay, there's something I want to do in my role, in my department, in my company that I think I can do with social media. And so how does that turn into a problem that is trying to be solved? There's this need, this desire to want to do something, but what problem is it solving? And then take the time and think about what social media can do to solve that problem or reach those people to get them to the problem solution, not following mainstream, not following all those steps, but going through a process that's just for you in your role, in your department, in your company, that can help you deliver a better service, solve somebody's problem, make somebody's life a little bit easier, just with that one thing. And so it could be incremental or it could be big, but until the problem is defined, the opportunity to connect with somebody and help make their lives easier, how would you use social media? I'd say it all depends.
Well, on that, all depends exactly. That should be the motto for social media. It depends. So in the immortal words of Queen, nothing lasts forever, and neither does this show. So we're done for this week. Hop over to Blab. We're going to continue the conversation a bit more loosey-goosey and have some fun, hopefully. And we'll see you next week, 12:15. Check us out on rayhiltz.com/Ray2Go or Crowdcast /Ray2Go. No, it's Ray Hiltz, actually. So anyway, so take care. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.